friends, welcome back to another episode of the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined again by my severed, shrunken, leathery head and sweater.
That is the best description you've ever given of Alex Dandino, and I did just refer to myself in the third person.
Alex Dandino. He's not a person. He's a construct of my broken psychology. All right, guys, welcome back. As you know, we've crushed through all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. Now we're on to crush every Friday the 13th movie. So, hopefully you guys listened to Friday Part 1. Such a better film than I think it's often remembered as. Very clever filmmaking. Now, I think the movie in the series that most needs to be refreshed in people's mind. Friday the 13th Part 2. I actually think this movie is astounding. And I think it gets washed in as, oh, it's the Burlap Sack one. Which I agree. Yeah. Visually, not a good Jason in this movie. But again, the filmmaking and the work they do to set the ground level of what Jason is really good. It's really good in this movie. And it does what best sequels do, right? Which is it takes all the things we love about Friday 1, adds new elements, fluffs them out, and sets the table for a new fun adventure.
Right.
I was really blown away by how much more I liked Friday 2. Because I usually put it down near the bottom of my list. But I was really impressed this time. What did you think, Alex?
I'll be honest, man. I've not really spent a lot of time watching the sequels past this show. So this was actually the first time I'd seen Part 2.
Really?
Yeah, dude.
Exciting.
I for absolutely no reason skipped it. I've seen Part 3 before, and like most of the other ones, but this one for some reason just never floated across my. Just never came up. Part 2, I thought actually was really interesting, and actually does a lot more for me than I thought it would. It does a really good job of not falling into usual slasher territory. Like, again, because I think Friday the 13th to me is probably, I mean, really kind of like what invented this version of the genre, of the subgenre of slasher films. So I think like it's interesting to watch it because you realize this is the first time a lot of these things happened, and a lot of these things were shot the way they were shot. So I liked it, especially the ending. I love everything. Like, I think Jenny's probably one of my all-time favorite Scream Queens.
Yes. No, Jenny's fantastic in this movie.
Jenny Field's probably my favorite Scream Queen, for sure.
Yeah, no, she's really good. What I think, too, is this movie does a really good job. Again, so what this movie establishes is the Jason we saw at the end of Friday 1 was somewhat a real thing, right? Maybe not that form. What you'll realize in this one in Part 3 is that Jason is still somewhat human in these. Yeah. Especially this one. They actually just play him as kind of this Hills Have Eyes hillbilly mutant, right? You see him actually react in pain to things. He's not overly enormous. When he's wrestling with the boyfriend at the end, he just looks like a normal guy. It's hard once you get to like the Friday the 13th remake to imagine someone wrestling Jason to the ground, right?
Right.
You're like, oh, he's like a 7 foot tall mountain of muscles.
Like, yeah, this version of Jason looks like a guy who like is walking around Silver Lake right now. But
I love how the hillbilly kind of vogue has just been captured by
Hillbilly Vogue is definitely captured well by Jason Voorhees in this movie. I'm sure soon the burlap. I'm sure the burlap sack helmet will be very popular soon.
Yeah. Well, what I like about the burlap sack takes a lot of shit because again, it's just not very interesting. It has this town that dreads sundown look to it.
Yeah.
And obviously, the hockey mask becomes so iconic. What I like about it is what it tells me psychologically about Jason is that here's this thing that lives in the woods, watched its mother die. And this is the hard part of the movie, is they don't really explain to us if Jason returned from the grave or survived the drowning accident. And either way, why he never comes back to his mother, right? Which kind of hints that maybe he was brought back as his mother was about to be destroyed. My theory being, I kind of like the idea that Mrs. Voorhees, when she's screaming at the end of Part 1,
yeah,
and doesn't defend herself, that maybe she spots Jason behind Alice.
Okay, I could buy that.
Yeah, that's the theory I've come up with, is that she sees him come back. Because he's existed only in her broken psyche. What if she saw him?
I think what I like to think is that there is this sort of symbiotic relationship between the two Voorhees, because, you know, Pamela Voorhees is able to survive the grief of her child dying to the point where she will, like, take revenge on randos at Camp Crystal Lake. But as she's dying, he returns. Like, there's a nice little give and take, and there's a nice little. I think that's how you have to lens it for yourself or phrase it for yourself, because going forward, these things get so crazy that he comes back from. Right. You're like, I have to assume, like, there's some sort of, because, like, it goes so far, like. Again, like, Jason X is a great example. Like, getting further into it, they're like, oh, yes, he has regenerative capabilities. I'm like, all right, if we're just going to go sci-fi with it, that's your thing. Like, I like to think it is much more spiritual than it is science fiction for Jason Voorhees to survive.
Exactly right. And I think these two movies work as a tandem apart from the rest of the Friday series, right?
Right.
They have the exact same style. They're very reliant on the POV to help. They use that as a way to deepen character. By part 3, the POV's done. They're like, now Jason is our front and center rock star murderer, right? An iconic visual killing machine. And they fall more into the traps that they've created. This one is paired with a mother's grief, right, at the loss of her child, and the concept that grief becomes the undead, right? Not Jason himself. The grief that Mrs. Voorhees had is then transferred on through her acts to someone else, right? In this case, her son, right? Because there's a way to look at it, because he's still human in this one, essentially.
Right.
What if Jason survived that drowning incident and is just like, I'm even afraid to go back to my mother because I bring her so much sadness and harm, and I make her life sad for her. To think of a young child making that kind of a judgment call and just surviving on his own, watching his mother fall apart from a distance and still thinking maybe that's the best thing. There's a lot of... Again, it's not clean, and I don't think you can fit it in, right, to where you can make it make sense.
Right, but there's
the way to look at it to me is what adds the most depth to the Jason we see, right? And we see him, and I think the burlap sack hints at this. Maybe he lived and didn't come back, because imagine being this creature who lives on his own in the woods. And still, you wear a mask because it's bred into you that you should be ashamed of your own appearance.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that
like,
says a lot about a monster, right? Because if he was just a killing machine, why wouldn't he want to display and be extra scary? He does hide.
I mean, I would say even look at the way the mask is. Like, the mask has one eye hole. He's so ashamed of that other side of his face. Like, that is pure Quasimodo shit right there, man. Like, that's like something else. Like... That's a whole nother level, and that's why I feel like the burlap sack might get a lot of shit. Very unfair. Like, what it really is it's a great visual metaphor for, as we go further into this, how fucked up Jason Voorhees actually is.
Right, because it doesn't tell you anything. Like, the hockey mask doesn't add anything to the character except for, fuck, that looks cool.
Yeah.
Which it undeniably does, right? In this one, the burlap sack and Jason also wearing overalls and flannel shirts, right?
Right.
There's still this level of Jason wanting to be a part of us while being terrified and unable to join us, right?
Right.
That's really an extra fascinating wrinkle. The part of the movie, because this is the thing, I think this cold open is my favorite in the series. I love the opening sequence with Alice.
Great. It's so good.
It does set a terrible standard, right? Because I love it and hate it. Because the thing I hate about these first couple Fridays is, I hate that the first 5 minutes of 2 and 3 are replaying the endings of the previous movie, right?
Right.
That drives me fucking... I don't need Alice flashing back. And it's not like flashing back to Jason jumping out of the water. We flash back 8 times.
Well, they want you to...
Like, this is 5 minutes until we start.
I was trying to, like, figure out why they liked doing this. Because, I agree. Like, 2 and 3 do the same thing. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we doing this, like... Hey, remember that thing that happened at the end of the last movie? Like, why are we doing a recap like it's a fucking episode of TV? And I think what it has more to do with is it's trying to put you in the mind. And go with this here. Like, I think it's trying to put you in the mindset of like, it makes you Alice. It makes you Jenny. Like, that was what I think the value of doing that is like, it gives the viewer the eternal investment of being that person. So when Alice ends up getting a fucking ice pick to her temple in this movie, like, that is us. We're like, oh my God, all the bets are off. She's not safe. We're not safe. What are we going to do? Like, there's a whole psychology to it, I think, that works. But, again, I agree. Like, it's not my favorite thing to go, last time on Friday the 13th. But
previously on children. No, but I think what's cool, and I agree with you on that. I mean, it has kind of a Stanley Marvel method thing. Yeah. We're like, well, what if it was a limited release and they needed to see it, right? But what I like about it, honestly, it's like if they had just cut it to like one flashback, maybe two.
Sure.
But like it just goes on so long. What I like though is it's bringing us in, and one of the shots of this opening, which is really good, right?
Right.
Is that we do the false POV. But it's not a normal Friday POV where it's, kind of walking through the woods. It's a POV dolly push, right? We're pushing in. And when we do, Alice rips the curtain back, and she's just staring down the lens at us.
Yeah.
So now what we've done is this woman is traumatized by her flashbacks of grief, and now we've POV shot ourselves into her brain, almost like we did with Mrs. Voorhees, right?
Right.
And what's funny is that the next sequence of her walking through her house, although we've seen a guy outside with boots, right? Playing with like a very Georgie-like Pennywise opening shot. Everything in her house, right? There's a cat that jumps in. There's a sound. There's a tea kettle. Every sound becomes terrifying to her. And we're forced to live in Alice's head for a moment of, holy shit, could you imagine had you survived this? And she's out trying to make her way through the world and get past, but every fucking thing brings her back. Right? So I think that's the really cool part of the opening. Is this use of the POV now from Alice, like a victim POV.
Sure.
Is really a cool thing. And then obviously it ends on just this fucking insane where she opens the fridge and Mrs. Voorhees' shriveled head is in the fridge, gets murdered, but the shot that sealed it for me, why does Jason take the tea kettle off, man? That really actually freaked me the fuck out. So I was like, I don't understand the etiquette of that moment, but it was terrifying to me.
That's interesting. What do you think about... I mean, do you think it's just a matter of not raising noise? Or do you think he was annoyed by the sound?
Maybe it's just like hey, I'll put an end to this. You know what I mean? Because Jason, obviously, as we see, loves people to find his handiwork. You think, if anything, you would put like 4 more kettles on and be like, there's a real strange sound over here. Start blasting some Kiss or something to try to get the neighbors over. But yeah, it's just, it almost has like a finality to it, which is just really intense.
No one's more proud of their murders than Jason Voorhees in any series.
No, for sure. Maybe Jason is like, oh, dude, you got that green tea? And he's like, that was some hard work. But there's also this giant missed opportunity. Because Crystal Lake exists in New Jersey, fictionally, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I believe we're in San Francisco. And I was like, I want the fan fiction film of Jason's cross-country journey to San Francisco in the burlap sack with his mother's head in his duffel. I was like, there is a whole fucking movie there that is so insane. I can't believe we haven't broached this. Like, how is that not a comic book? Fuck. Just Jason trekking across hippie America, Rambo Last Blood style, with his mom's head in his backpack.
There's for sure a comic book here of just like, I mean, that's like...
I'll write it. Call me, guys. We'll do it.
Yeah. We should totally
Isn't that insane? Because that's the thing. They just kind of play it off as like, yeah, Jason was able to track down an address, right? Read a phone book, catch a bus schedule. There's this whole world of things that Jason somehow had to do. And of course, like New Jersey to San Francisco, that's about as far as it can get. Yeah, it's like you wandered up to New York City for the weekend.
I mean, like getting.
I would love to see that section.
Getting all the way to San Francisco, the hippie capital of the world. I mean, that's. Oh God, dude! I really want to read Jason Voorhees' Hippie Killer now. Fuck.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Jason takes the Castro instead of Manhattan. This Jason's like, ha! And at the end, it's just him versus Harvey Milk.
Oh, that's
Milk fucking destroys him.
Oh yeah, Milk.
That would be awesome.
That's the rewrite of history I want. Milk destroys Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, Milk destroys Jason Voorhees, goes on to be the hero America needed. Yeah, that's the Tarantino historical rewrite I want to watch for sure. But just the fact that we just brush over that Jason cross country travels with his mom's dead head.
Yeah,
crazy, and the fact that he's growing. He's growing.
Yeah, he's getting
That's why I think he's actually a human still too, not a full zombie in this one.
Yeah, I think that, he's not, again, like, he's not quite in the iconic costume yet. Like, I think that's what's interesting is, like, and I wonder if this is the case, too. And tell me if you think this. Do you think that originally they thought that was going to be Jason? Or did they change it?
I don't assume that they had any of this ready, and that when Friday 1 came out, it was just this box office bonanza. I think,
right.
Oh fuck, what do we do for 2?
Because like originally,
and they had obviously had some forethought with the zombie Jason jumping out,
right? But do you think it was supposed to be Jason? Because he looks so radically different visually.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be because he's still deformed a little. I think what it is they took the concept of, and again, there's no clean way to make this work, right? Yeah. That Jason shows up as the kid at the end and then grows into the man. And if he was alive, why didn't he see mom? I think they were just like, well, we have Jason Voorhees. This makes sense. And they struck gold with the image of his altar to his mother. Yeah. Is just one of those horror movie things that just, oh my God.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
When you see that, that's just one of those chilling things because they talk about this too. This is something that went back to, Frankenstein and Dracula. We on a genetic level, right? An evolutionary level, we understand dead things bad.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't be by dead, rotting things. It's just bad for our health, disease, whatever. So there's this level of watching it, like, look at the love and care that is shown here, but also, oh my God, he went and got her head.
Yeah.
And has been praying to it. And the smell. And wait, did he strip his mother down? Did he, take his mother's clothes? It's this whole thing of just the horror show of what is happening.
Right.
And that's the thing about the image which works so well is it's done in reverence and love and loneliness, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it's so vile. It's such a desecration of his mother, but done with the love of a child. I mean, it's one of those images you're like, you could just write a whole book about that image, it says so much to our psyches and hearts.
Sure. Ugh. Well, yeah, I mean,
that image always gets me.
There's a whole self-help section of books about this concept. I mean, to me, again, I said this on the last show, Jason Voorhees might be one of the more probably the most tragic villain figure I've ever witnessed. Especially on this viewing of the Friday the 13th movies, it's so sad. He loves his mother who was devoted to him to the point where he died. Or didn't die, who knows at this point, but to the point where she was in a situation where she killed for him even after death. It wasn't even in a revenge situation. She literally did it in this manic depression of, I don't have a child anymore. The people who I hold myself responsible, but the only way I can reflect that into the real world is to hold the people who did not protect my son accountable for not protecting my son. There's something so profoundly depressing about that. And then for Jason to come back and be like, well, I have her head. I have to carry out her life's work. Really, that's kind of what this is. It's very weird. It's bizarre.
Well, what it does too visually is it turns the onus on to Mrs. Voorhees, right?
Yeah.
This is Jason interpreting her mission. Because like you said, her mission is revenge against the people who didn't protect her son. That should include herself.
Totally. Absolutely.
Right? So her own head, while on this altar of love, becomes also this giant red flag of,
oh yeah,
this whole motivation is wrong. Everything about this is wrong.
Right.
And to see this child try to wrestle with that is fascinating.
It's pretty cool. I mean, not in the sense of oh, that's cool, but more just it's a deeper psychological story than I think a lot of people give it credit for, particularly part 2, because again, you have a character like Jenny, and this might be one of the first times that they did this where Jenny is like learning child psychiatry and that kind of shit. Like Jenny's not just like, oh, it's a camp counselor trying to fuck. Like it's literally someone who is curious about what's going on inside the mind of someone who is essentially controlled by not their mother, but like the memory of their mother. There's a lot going on psychology wise that I don't think a lot of people give this movie credit for.
Right. Well, they even stop. I mean, in the weird scene of the movie is a bunch of kids go to the bar to drink and party and don't get killed, right? Very, again, anti-Friday. But what happens in this is she's sitting there in the bar, and instead of just drinking and partying, she wants to put herself in that headset, you know, her headspace saying, imagine what this man would look like after all he's been through and being shunned by society. And this. So by the time that we've seen his cabin in the woods, we're looking at it from a sympathetic place, too, because her lens as the last girl is that of sympathy in a way.
Right.
Here's a question I had, right? Besides, why the fuck is Crazy Ralph still riding around on this bike? Like, doesn't someone have like a rocking chair they can put him on a front porch and help his ass out?
Why is it that the cops are constantly letting Crazy Ralph roll around? Don't get it.
But not only that, doesn't this movie, when you see Crazy Ralph again and he starts doing his crazy routine, isn't this the time where you're like, you know what? Maybe Ralph is very heroic. Instead of just the crazy doomsayer in this one, he almost has a like, I tried to.
Oh no, I think the reason Crazy Ralph's viewed is crazy because again, like this is like this is like one of those great like little writing story bits I always love is like people who are viewed as crazy always end up being the people who are trying to help and tell the truth and save the world. Like it's that same notion of like, oh, everyone thinks I'm out of my mind, but like look who got proven correct. It's like, well, that's Crazy Ralph in a nutshell. Crazy Ralph saw something terrible happen when he was younger and he's like, I know something bad will come of this. And he tried to tell them. He tried to explain it, and no one would listen. You know what's
really sad about Crazy Ralph? There's an almost throwaway shot, right? When, oh God, what's the girl's? Jenny's getting her robe on, right?
Right.
So she's in her bra, getting her robe on, a classically vulnerable Friday monster moment, right? She hears a sound. We cut to outside. A shadow walks past her door. It then ends in a jump scare with her own boyfriend, right? The head counselor dude.
Yeah.
The shadow is clearly Ralph, though. It has his little hat. If you go back and look at the shadow, not only is Ralph telling them, please don't do this and get out, right? Maybe not. He's not the best messenger, right? He's a little traumatized and, mentally not all there. He's at the camp, perhaps trying to protect them.
Right. Well,
in that course, gets himself destroyed.
Right.
Ralph actually ends up having this very heroic arc.
Ralph tried, man. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, like...
Ralph is at the camp seemingly trying to help out. Why else would he be there?
Again, I
don't think Ralph's just there as a pervert and then gets killed.
I feel like Ralph and that old guy from the Home Alone movie are the two like most misunderstood characters in movies, where they end up being
scary German guy from Monster Squad.
They end up being complete and utter heroes that no one marks until the very end. Like, and I mean, this happens at the beginning of the fucking movie.
Until you realize the guy in Home Alone used to take that salt shovel to his son. That's why they're estranged.
Well, there's always that, but that's a fanfic for a different time.
There's a little hidden child abuse, but we'll do that on the Home Alone pod. Don't worry. But I like this movie a lot, man. And again, I don't think the kills are spectacular in this one. I don't think Jason's spectacular, but I think it's the fact that, like, here's something they did in this movie which is fascinating, right? Here are two really cool Jason additions they did. One, isn't it obviously Jason who cuts that log and tries to block the road to the camp?
Oh, I thought it would have been Crazy Ralph.
We see his POV. Yeah. When they're doing it, right? This is the Jason POV. Mm-hmm. Is that girl's like, it's spooky out here. I'll wander into the woods. Right? Classic 80s stuff. And he doesn't lunge out and immediately kill her. It almost gives Jason this, guys, please don't make me do this. Right?
Yeah.
Jason is clearly the one who cuts the log because it cuts to his POV shot afterwards.
He wants to be left alone. I think that's like the thing that Jason... again... It's another example of what makes Jason so tragic because he's a guy who wants to be left alone. He's been through enough and he doesn't want to have to deal with it anymore. And I think that's what I like the most about Jason Voorhees is that he's honestly, after watching these movies, he's a very reluctant killer. He doesn't want to do this, but as soon as people invade his space is when his mother starts speaking to him again. Like, I think that's probably the most...
It's the Shrek storyline. Get out of my swamp!
But that's exactly what it is. Like, don't... It's like, it's poking the bear. There's a place up there, road...
He never goes into Camp Crystal Lake to kill.
No. Like, there's a place up the road called Camp Blood. All right, we'll go hang out. Well, fuck you. You totally deserve it then. Like, that is, I think, the tragedy of Jason Voorhees.
If you come into his domain...
Jason Voorhees is wildly misunderstood.
True, though.
Leave him alone.
But imagine, this is what I mean, though. The psychological profile, if you will, of Jason in this movie is wildly different, right?
Yes.
He's trying to keep them out by sawing the log. He watches them saying, like, please. And she even finds the Camp Crystal Lake sign.
Right.
That they know means Camp Blood, which you assume Jason put there because it's not right by the camp. To say, guys, I'm giving you all these clues. Please get the fuck out of here. Right? So you have a Jason trying to keep people out. Right. Trying to cover himself with the burlap sack, trying to wear normal clothes and just live in the woods and, have a relationship with what's left of his mom.
Right.
As creepy as it all is by the end, he's trying in his own way. And then you cut to the campfire story and you just see these kids saying, oh, I'll make up this legend about a bloodthirsty Jason who can't wait to activate himself and eat our young flesh.
Right.
That's not him. And at the end, when he jumps out in the mask with the spear, like, they force Jason into that role. That's not the role Jason's wanting to play.
I think this goes back to last show when we talked about, when I was saying, like, this feels very much like Norman Bates and his mother. Like, there's nothing about this that isn't almost exactly the same. Like, Jason does not want to kill. Jason does not want to have to do these things. What he does is he listens to his mother, and the version of his mother in his head is someone who's clearly very vengeful and very spiteful. And I mean, whether or not you believe that was, imparted to him when he was alive, quote unquote, but nevertheless, the psychology is still there, and the idea that your mother controls you in that sense is still very relevant, especially for Jason Voorhees throughout the series, but particularly in this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Very sad Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, they really nailed down that, right, is that that was all he had was just his mom. The other thing they do, which I like, is the first couple POV shots where we get the ma, ma, ma. They don't do the ma, ma, ma as much. I think it's just
yeah.
Because now it's just him. It's not him asking his mom. Now he's in charge, right?
Yeah, it's
just
little
response, clever stuff like that, man, that I dig, man. I thought this was really well done. Again, and the final showdown at Jason's cabin.
So good.
It's just horror movie perfection to me, because that's the kind of stuff that we now have this psychological layout of this kid who's been traumatized by something he couldn't control in his own life more than once. Creepy altar to mom. When Ginny goes full psychology on him, though, and she has the wherewithal, he's coming to put the fucking sweater on.
Ugh.
Holy shit, man. That was brilliant. Yeah. That is a brilliant
That's why Jenny's my favorite final
concept.
Girl, man. Jenny's the best final girl because she tries to not... What she tries to do is, she's not trying to survive, she's trying to help. Like, that's the kind of thing I like the most about Jenny is, Jenny's survival instinct is not to just, like, stab the guy and get the upper hand. Her survival instinct is to use her brain and actually, like, think it through. Like, this guy clearly listens to an ulterior force. Like, there's a head sitting right here on a shrine. Clearly, this is an important person. I'm going to try to make this work. Like, and that scene, too, is so fucking cool where she's, like, saying, like, how does she know the words to say? Like, that's fucking awesome, man. Like, there's some cool shit going on.
Because she spent the time running it through. Like, but this is what I mean, right? The more human Jason, the more merciful, he's just this kind of lost child.
Right.
When he kneels in front of her and he just looks up with that one eye through the burlap sack, that's the whole movie to me.
That's it.
That's the whole... I mean, that level of emotional storytelling in this kind of a movie, I mean, we really don't get back there for almost the rest of the series, right? No. Like, it's just such a touching moment that just because of the sweater and the voice, he's so delusional and so desperately wants this to be true that he's completely stopped from his killing machine ways.
I mean, if only he.
Oh man, that whole moment is amazing.
Oh, it's just like there's just something about that whole entire scene. Again, like it's just so fucking different from every other. Past this one, it really does become like your generic slasher flick for me. But like this particularly has such a fascinating appeal because, again, like she just doesn't function the way other final girls do. And this is something that I really enjoy about this movie is that, again, the wherewithal to put on that sweater might be one of the A, grossest, B, coolest moments in any of these movies. Because, like, that right. Sweater, who knows what's on that sweater, by the way. Just saying.
Not good.
No.
Not good.
Not good.
For sure. Well, what I like about it, too, is the build-up to this is, again, this is another one of these, it lasts a long time, the kind of final showdown and fighting. When Alice is running, or not Alice, Ginny's running through the woods, it has this very Wonderland quality, right? The way they shot her running and running and running and cuts to the moon and the music, it has this leaving reality kind of mindset, right? Where we're uncoupling her from the classic, Crystal Lake thing that we've done, and we're sending her out into Jason's world, his mind.
Right.
The Wonderland quality of how they shot that part really helps the payoff at the end, too. I do have to say, there are some honorable mention kills that I forgot. This has one of my all-time favorite Friday kills, which was the wheelchair guy. That kill is fucking brutal. That was brutal.
It's pretty intense, man. Like I mean, honestly, I'd more say it's a feat of amazing makeup for one. Like I fucking love that kill. Like well, I remember reading about it, how hard it was. Like, do you know how hard it is to get a wheelchair to roll down all those stairs backwards with someone in it? Right. Well, not only that, like, also,
I'm glad you did.
Also, just the sound effect of the machete hitting his head is one of my favorite. Like, it's not like a or anything like that. It's literally just like a thud. Fucking awesome, man.
No, it's amazing because that was a really good kill. I like one of my favorite things in Fridays is when they give something. They usually will give one thing to a character, right? This is what establishes them, and this is how we know who they are. So his thing is the wheelchair, obviously, right? But he's not some classic, like a Franklin, right? In Texas Chainsaw, he's just complaining about my life's hard.
Right, yeah.
Although that's exactly how I would be if that was my lot as well. So not like I'm here judging, like be tough, because I'm not. But I like that he's this powerful, like, dude, I'm going to walk again. I'm here, man. Fuck you. I'm out here. I'm going to be a camp counselor.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like the worst job ever for him in this movie.
He gets around fine.
They even give him and the girl are going to play a game, and what do you want to play for? Position. Nice. That line struck me. I was like, is that rude to our wheelchair friend?
I mean, no.
Perhaps let him pick the position, right?
Well, maybe it's a little...
Let him be in charge of the position picking.
Maybe it's trying to be a little playful.
Sexual. I like the foreplay. It's very taunting.
Little foreplay.
I like it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I was like, at the end of the day, even if you beat him in Tecmo Bowl or whatever, be nice. Let him pick. Let him pick the position. But yeah, that kill's fantastic. I also love the spear through the two kids when they're having sex.
Oh, that's iconic, man. Like there's stuff like that.
That shot is awesome.
Like that's the kind of thing that like they've like tried and failed repeating on multiple occasions in movies where it's just like the double kill like that. Like that one is just that's aces. Like there's no way to get better than that because that was the first time I remember that's the first time I remember seeing that. And Again, that is like one of those like really great moments where you're just like, there it is. Like I know they tried to do it a couple of different times. It's something
very simple, but really creative as well.
Yeah,
that's when Friday's at the best. Simply creative, right? Those are always the best Friday kills to me.
Again, like necessity's the mother of invention, and I think when you're rolling around with 1.2 million, this is pretty much that's the best you can do, and that's also the best you should be doing. It's pretty rad.
And it's great. It's fucking great. All right, so at the end we get Jason's showdown. They wrestle. She machetes his shoulder. He stabs her. They get back to the cabin. We see that Muffin wasn't the mangled dog. That was a surprisingly nice scene for me.
That was nice.
I was super happy to see Muffin alive. Again, they strike gold again. Jason leaping through that window.
Awesome.
All fucking gnarly hillbillied up.
It was great.
And dragging Jenny through the window. Awesome.
But
fucking outstanding work. But again, it's all a flashback. These kids are crazy. Am I right?
They
Just
are.
cut to a cop.
Out of their mind.
This is the worst thing that happened to these two movies. The big strike, right? Why they can't be A movies.
Yeah.
Is because you give me 5 minutes of the last movie, and then you give me this Return of the King extra endings that I don't need. Again, just end on Jason dragging her out the window and cut to your still frame of the altar. That's all you need.
I feel like if that was the ultimate, like if that was the end all be all of all these movies, like where someone like his last like respite is dragging someone out by like their hair or some crazy shit, like that to me, those are award winning endings right there. But then like
this is the thing
with
the
punctuation,
they added this
it's no
detail. No, it's not. And again, don't make me question what I just saw.
Yeah.
This is a pretty
Don't do that.
straightforward fucking movie, except for the whole explanation of who Jason is, right?
Right.
But what they did is when they fight Jason, his mask comes off. They don't show it, which seemed like a really weird choice as you're watching the movie. It's like, how are they not going to pay off the deformed face?
Right.
That seems like a pretty integral thing to pay off after the burlap sack and all that. This good character work they're doing.
Yeah.
And they just go, oh, Jesus. And they walk out, right? This is Jason. Oh, you didn't want my mask? You don't want me covered up and human-like? Fuck you! This is Jason erupting forth and completely sets the stage for this full maniac Jason who's like, fuck your society. I don't give a shit anymore. I have no restrictions.
Yeah.
You tried to take my mom from me. I'm coming. Like, now I'm here. And it's just amazing that they found such a good image again.
Oh, yeah.
Again. And they shit on it with the flashbacks are just awful. And again, they do it in part 3. They love this moment.
It's just a fave, man.
It's bad. It's real bad. But the ending is powerful. What I think I take away from this one, I like that they kind of remade the same movie but found so much new ground to cover.
Yeah.
And I love the depth that they add to Jason, which I think Jenny's an integral part of that, is our last girl. It's really a very clever and successful sequel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think, again, we talk about reinventing the wheel a lot of the time, or inventing the wheel in Friday the 13th case. But, yeah, what they did was they took the formula that worked and they made it work again, but in a way that wasn't just like, well, all right, bunch of kids go to the woods, they fuck, and they get killed. Like, there's meaningful story going on throughout this whole thing, and I credit a lot of that to Jenny. I think Jenny's a wonderful addition to this universe. I'm sad that Jenny did not continue, as we'll get to part 3, but nevertheless.
Yeah. Well, Jenny being empathetic to begin with.
Yeah.
And the decisions they made for Jason that seemingly allow us to have empathy with him before the slaughter starts is a really powerful combination. And again, it's something that Jason loses as the series goes on.
Right.
Because once he puts on the mask, it's over.
Yeah.
Now we are in just super murder machine, right?
Right.
This, I'm just going to fucking destroy sinful children. But these first two movies coupled by themselves, I think just have an extra depth of character that you just do not see in a lot of these movies, right?
Right.
Even something like Candyman, I think, has that same kind of really brilliant, tragic revenge tale. Right. But they never manifest in Candyman's actions as much. You know, then it's just simple revenge and this and that.
Right.
It's not very human once he gets, into ghost form.
Right.
But I think the Voorhees in these first two, it's a really brilliant mother and child, both kind of dealing with the same thing in different ways. Mrs. Voorhees seems to have no mercy. Jason still seemingly has room for mercy at the start. What if they would have just turned back when they saw that log? It's a fun experiment in your mind of what could have happened. And then part 3 says, fuck all that, murder! All right, guys, that's it for the film Alchemist. And Friday the 13th Part 2. We will return with Friday the 13th Part 3D? Question mark. My DVD actually still has the 3D glasses, so I can watch the 3D version anytime I want. Because I'm cool. So, if you like the show, which we hope you do, keep joining us for the rest of Friday the 13th, all the other good horror movie stuff we're doing. Send us your suggestions for movies that you want covered in December. No theme required. We're just here to stock your stuff and give you guys the gifts you want.
Stuff your stocking.
What did I say?
Stuff your stock. Or you said stock your stuffing? Yes.
Whatever works for you guys. Wink. That's it, guys. Leave us a rating and review. Share us on your socials. We do appreciate it. We'll see you as we return to Camp Crystal Lake tomorrow. Bye.